So I'm here today to take you through BIM, but I would like to know, first of all, has anyone heard of that term, BIM? Yes. Oh, we got a couple here. That's all right. Well, for those that have heard of it, I'm going to take you through a new way of looking at it and back to the basics, so you can educate people like my mother, bless her heart, best mum ever. However, she's not from an engineering architectural background, but she gets it. But at the same time, this same type of information I've taken through with directors of large public listed companies, and they've got it too. And I think that's the secret. We're all about communication and collaboration. But ultimately tonight we're here about women in facilities managers, and you guys, I'll let you be excused for being blokes at such an evening. But the whole aim, and I guess the holy grail of BIM, and BIM I should elaborate is building information modelling, which we'll look at, is facilities management, because ultimately it already is and will certainly in the future affect each one of your lives in a good way by giving you information at hand relative to a visual virtual model that you can see and understand. So we'll move forward. The next slide we've got here is a little bit about what we do. So this company here, Innovative Growth Solutions, I established about 4 years or so. And we're basically like interpreters, because basically you have manufacturers on one side of the supply chain and the architectural engineering construction in the development of a building, and then the facilities managers at the end at the other side. And often you guys don't speak the same language. And often these guys are always trying to get specified over here, and these guys are going, stop calling us every second day, because we have a lot of different furniture manufacturers calling us. So it's a tough position to be in, and as we're here tonight at Workspace, we've got both sides of the fence. But the good news is that this whole communication platform, this whole process of BIM is bridging that gap, and we're the interpreters in that gap, and we specialise in creating BIM content that works for these guys and gets this information across so that you guys get specified more often. So moving forward, who's been to IKEA? Who likes IKEA? Who loathes IKEA? Yeah, good. Who likes putting IKEA together? Yeah, good. And funny enough, it was all the blokes who said that, because often the missus, my wife's just saying, can you put that together, dear? And 2 days later, you know, it's a whole war. Anyway, moving forward, IKEA, similar to, say, Workspace, and I will draw on them a little bit tonight because we are sitting in a manufacturer's establishment. But they have a brochure, they have a website, as you can see here. And they also have CAD files sometimes, and they have information about their products, as well as binders and folders that populate architects' offices and eventually make their way through to product warranties and product data that ends up in the facilities manager's giant box of plans. But IKEA also have a software platform. Who's been to Bunnings or IKEA or used one of those online planning softwares? Hands up. Yeah, we've got a couple there. Great. So what you do here is you start grabbing these products after you've measured out your wall, say I don't know, about 2.5, 3 metres, and you start placing them. And these ones will go on the floor. These ones will have to host to something that's sitting on the floor. Basically, it knows what it is and where it goes. Over here, my lovely wife picks all these funky colours, and I go, dear, maybe we should go back to white because it'll hold its value better. And then as we're doing that, it's populating this cost up here. And it's also creating a product list. So each object is intelligent. It knows what it is and where it is. So there's components, there's a location, there's a color, there's a capability, so it knows what it is, and there's obviously a cost associated with it. So I call that SIM. I coined that phrase. I should make a little Wikipedia page. Casework or cabinet information modeling. So does everyone understand that? Great. So BIM. Now, BIM is the process that the construction industry has been talking about since 1983, which ironically is how old I am. And for the last 30 years, they have been discussing how this process is going to apply to the construction industry. And now it's really turning into a reality, and you're going to see a mandated reality. So whether we like it or not, it's here and it's coming. And this process here moves from conceptual design through to design, development and analysis, right the way through to construction and facilities management. So today, and all commercial businesses are run on making a profit and a return on investment. BIM saves money through being informed, less mistakes, the list could go on. But what we see here is this design construction process, people often attribute it to guess how much of the construction cost. So if I said to you here, I want a few guesses, if this is 100% of the cost of a building, and let's say it's a 30-year life cycle, how much does it cost as a percentage to get from here to here? Guesses. Jason.
I didn't even put my hand up.
That's all right, you got allocated.
80%.
80% of the cost, okay, design and construct. How about, I don't want to laser point people, that's probably 80%?
I'll go with more like 40%.
40%? Okay. Well, the bottom line is, it's actually, yeah, I heard someone saying 20. Yeah. 10. You're spot on. It's a small percentage. Anywhere to say between 10 and 30%, depending on the building and depending on how it's developed. So, yes, we're seeing a lot of value from BIM that you're about to see in the design and construction, but the real value comes in here because you have information at your fingertips. You know what's behind that wall. You know what's above this ceiling. So let's move into it. Another thing BIM allows is buildings like this to be built. That's at the top of Swanson Street. Everyone know it, the RMIT building? Pretty fancy. Each one of these facade panels, give or take, is slightly different. This building we're in here is two-dimensional. It's actually made up of flat sections. This here is quite a complex facade that in the past, especially around these sections, was a challenge to do. This facade has actually been constructed using the process of BIM through a tool called Revit, which we'll discuss very soon, and it's gone all the way through to like the CNC cutting machines from the Revit model. So say if we take Workspace, I know they use CNC as part of their production workflow. There is possibility that the same type of files are used there are the same type of files, a different iteration that the architects will use, and then that the engineers will use, and then that the actual facilities managers will use to reorder when they want to expand. So this communication is all being centralized through the process of BIM. So I think I've harped on enough about BIM. BIM is a process. If people say, we do BIM, you want to question that and ensure they do the process of BIM. You can't buy it out of a box. How do you do BIM? How do you make yourself a builder? I love this little analogy. If I go down to Bunnings and buy a hammer, or some of you guys go down to Bunnings, it doesn't make you a carpenter. It makes you a man or a woman with a hammer. And it doesn't build a house. So first of all, there are a variety of different hammers, hickory hammers, there's fiberglass hammers, there's all kinds. And there's also these nails. They're what you build the building with. IGS specializes in these nails, the blocks that go into a building. But let's talk about the software first. There are many tools. Just like at Bunnings, there are many types of hammers. It's what you do with the hammer that's important. It's not which hammer you necessarily have. However, I show you this graph here because in Australia and internationally, Revit is the primary driving force in this BIM industry. They're by Autodesk. They did AutoCAD. They do 3ds Max, so Spider-Man, Avatar, that type of technology, right through to Inventor, which competes with SolidWorks for manufacturing of products, be it caster wheels and things like that, through to automotive industry. So if we look at this trend here, we've got ArchiCAD, MicroStation and Revit. This is the primary BIM platforms in Australia. And I've done a Google search over the last 10 years in Australia for these products. You can see Revit certainly has increased. And this is because Autodesk actually purchased it at around this earlier in this sector. What year, Nick? You'd know that. About 2008, and as you can see, it's exponentially grown. So I'm just giving some validity to that statement that Revit is the primary tool. So we're going to talk about Revit today. We're not going to talk about the others, but I can certainly elaborate on those because we do deal with them. And the tool and process being BIM. So first of all, who's heard of AutoCAD? Yes, we've all done AutoCAD. It's great, isn't it? Because you can draw plans, you can draw elevations, and you get a representation of what you're creating. So a chair, architects understand what it is. They can drag and drop it in their project. Wonderful. However, if I'm drawing this elevation of my barn, because it's some American AutoCAD file I found, and I add an extra window here, I then have to change it in my floor plan, my section, everywhere, as well as my elevation. And if I forget to do that, because I'm human and I make mistakes on a daily basis, just ask my wife, I have errors that track down throughout the process and add to the cost of the project. Plus, it is a harder process. And yes, there is 2D AutoCAD, which you're looking at, and yes, there is 3D AutoCAD, pretty pictures you see in those rendering brochures and fly-throughs. But this is not BIM. If people say they're doing BIM through AutoCAD, they're not. Because BIM is actually a database, which you're going to learn about, that happens to give a picture. This is just a picture. This is Revit. This is Revit used from residential right through to commercial. And yes, it's a pretty picture. You could do it in Autodesk software. However, it has a few more tricks under the hood, so to speak. And that's what we're going to look at. I'm going to liken it to building content, a building product, really. And this could be a light fixing, roof tiles, flooring, chairs, anything that makes up a building product. Instead of just being symbolic lines on a page in AutoCAD, this has intelligence. This window knows it's a window. It knows it can't host in the roof or the floor. It knows if it gets too close to a corner or overlaps with another window, it comes up with a warning. It knows the manufacturer's tolerances. So if I parametrically increase its width, so the architect can say, I want a wider one, it will add another vertical mullion and it beef up the transom according to span. Or it will say you can't do that according to manufacturer specifications. So AutoCAD can do that to a point, but it's still giving symbolic line work. This knows it's a window, it hosts. It even cuts the wall and tells you where to create that cut. So all those details are modeled into the product by the likes of IGS, but the intelligence is in there. But there's more than that. That one-to-one scale model, if we looked at before, if we start sectioning it horizontally and vertically, we start to get our plans and elevations. So that means I can work in floor plan and it's updating my site elevation, or I can work in 3D and it's doing the same. So unlike the story before where I change a window and have to change it everywhere else, if I change it there, it changes everywhere. And furthermore, now I just view my one-to-one scale model at different levels. So this is at 1 to 100, this is at 1 to 35 to fit it on the sheet there. I start to get more detail. So say for a chair, if I go to 1 to 5, I can look at the caster information. If I go to 1 to 100, I can see all the chairs dotted around this area we're sitting in now. This is where the gold is. Revit actually is not about 3D modeling. It's actually about a database of information. And information is what manages a building. And information being at hand easily is quite handy. And I just want to put in the precept too, I'm not a facilities manager, so no doubt things I say tonight will possibly contradict. However, I open up to questions at the end and also further input from your perspective, because it's all about collaboration from design right through to FM. So in here we've got our database associated to that window. So say a high-rise building, or even this building here, these windows on the walls would have a family get hosted, and then I could do a schedule of how many they were, what size, what level they were on, and then furthermore I could get the exact dimensions, product URL of that, who to call, how to order, all the above, hosted within your drawing. So these product manufacturer libraries that are what the building blocks of BIM are more than just a pretty picture. They have all of the information on the specific real-life product used in the project. So what does this mean? Manufacturers constantly provide information into this process. At the start, it's for design. At the end, it is an output to the owner of the building. Here you go, and ultimately the facilities manager. And often it comes in this format. There's a classic image which I couldn't find of a guy holding this giant box, and often it sits in a dark room gathering dust. And I've heard stories too, like an air conditioner has an error and it takes them 3 days to find which air conditioner by someone switching it on and off because it's in this massive bank. So again, the information's not easily accessible, and in older buildings it may not even be at hand. But let's just look at these building products before we get into the broader BIM space. So here's a chair, fittingly enough we're all sitting on one. So currently they have a library of objects, and ironically a lot of manufacturers are getting asked to remove this library because they want to put another staff member in the architectural office. And currently the traditional output of the project, if it has been specified, is drawings, warranties, specification documents. But where they're heading to is this. Architects are requesting now that we want our chairs as a BIM object. We want to be able to see them in the 3D context to assist us to sell it to the client. And furthermore, we want to show it up in our documentation in a correct manner, and we want to schedule it most importantly. And in here we want to have your green star rating or your production capacity, and the fact it's not made in China through perhaps shady ways in which it's been put together. You've gone to the effort of getting all these specifications. We want them in here so it's less likely to be specced out. We as content creators can't promise that, but we can certainly assist in conveying that information all the way through to FM. Classic story, Britex stainless steel urinals. I've been modelling a lot of those. And they told me a case study where a facilities manager called them up and said, your urinal's broken, it's not flushing. Oh, that's no good, you know, tell me which model, which, etc. Oh, it's in the drawing, it's this. Oh, okay, can you go over to it? They go over to it, and Britex says, is the embossed stamp of Britex logo on there? No. Specced out last minute. It happens all the time. We're very price conscious. But BIM and having content in this format is bringing accountability to the industry. So people, owners, actually getting the building they paid for. And all those things hidden in malls and other spaces, it's being shown, it's being visible through laser scanning and other things that we won't get into today. But also obviously you get your renders and the like, which you'll see down the track. And furthermore, those products hook back to your website, hook back to that information at hand. So basically you've got the product visual, you've got the drawings occurring, and you've also got the technical information. So from design through to FM, it's all there. Moving through MEP, so mechanical, electrical, plumbing. You know, from one extreme, I guess, the last thing to go into the project, kind of the chairs, and often an afterthought, unfortunately, through to the fundamentals of how the building breathes. Again, they work on the same process. There's different sectors in these architectural libraries. You've got an input, you've got an output. But this is where it's heading. It shows some of the different MEP networks and systems. It's from one of the MEP experts I work with in Adelaide who assists us with content. And yeah, as you can see, it's quite complex. But not only is this a pretty picture, it's got all the information in there. And it's sitting in the roof cavity. And furthermore, it actually calculates loads and capacity. So it helps in design, but it can also tie into sensor data and building management systems, which you'll see towards the end. It also creates your documentation. And furthermore, it can be tagged, so all the information can be put in there. So in the past and traditionally, and even on projects today, you get a building, the owner and the facilities manager, and you get a mix of information thrown to you in a giant box. Here you go, good luck, see you later, here's the keys. Where we're heading to is a virtual building, but behind each object of that building is the information at hand. So that's a quick insight into, I guess, the nuts and bolts of BIM. Let's look at it from a broader perspective now and bring it all together. So around the world, who's doing what? The UK are actually really leading this industry. A couple of years back, the government came out with a bold statement and said everyone's going to be on BIM by the year 2016. We explained earlier that BIM doesn't happen overnight and BIM's a process. Traditionally, an architectural firm, it takes about 2 years of implementation to make the out-of-the-box hammer turn them into builders for their design process. And this kind of learning curve happens all the way through the industry, even to facilities managers. Not quite a steep a learning curve at that end. But what they've done is put in steps such as the National BIM Library, as well as other initiatives over there to get them up to speed. And it's been quite an irony that the whole economy's crashed at that time, but the beauty is they're now realising through that hard work the efficiencies and savings, which is assisting them to get out of that economical space. So I'm going to show you a little bit of a video now, which gives you a bit of an insight into how the information builds the model. This is a video advertising their library, and I will add a little bit of commentary over the top. Let's see. So what you're viewing there is actually a Revit model. And here they're illustrating that all that information is tied to the pretty picture, the 3D image. And clients love seeing this, and you've all seen it on telly from cars to buildings, but it comes from this, a Revit model. And this is what I call a family or a piece of Revit content, being a furniture manufacturer. In the UK they have prices and other things involved. Over here I don't suggest doing that, I suggest referencing everything back to the website and to consultants. And the NBN has a generic level, and then it has a competitive space beneath that for manufacturers to be able to compete on their given strengths and weaknesses and be able to swap out those products within their model. So every object is a real object. And say for a door like we're looking at here, it has all the properties of a door, how it swings, how it moves, its materials, its maximum minimum spans, its ratings. Wind loads, all of the above can be included. We're next going to walk into the kitchen after we have a look at this chair, and we start to look at the MEP aspect of the building. But again, here's an individual chair within a broader family that includes tables and chairs. the roof's in there, so structure's taken into account. So it moves from architecture, the design vision, through to the reality of it, and the stress, strain and engineering behind it. Here's the MEP, so the different fixtures. They might have their electrical load, their gas load, all the exhaust requirements, all modelled in and plumbed in virtually before it happens in reality. Fire ratings, you can even export these type of models to fire type software to work out sprinkler positions and things like that. And there's it in floor plan, that same pretty picture when viewed from above. Modules, we're doing that with Britex at the moment, so not only do we convert individual products, but then we group them and give you inspiration. So a digital showroom basically that you copy and paste from. This is good. They go into a bathroom, look at a few different products right down to the jelly soap dispenser. But then they're going to change those sinks over because the client wants a different design that costs more, but they think there's a worth in it, possibly because of the water rating, although it's a sink so it has no water rating. But they like the aesthetic of it perhaps. But they can actually demonstrate this design to them in a very fluid manner. So in this case, they log on to the site of the MBS, but in this case, say if it was chair, they might log on to Workspace site and download the product. You can see the connectors down the bottom here. So these are what go into the plumbing engineer's arm of the software. And once you've got it in plan, you've got to document it, but you can also visualize it and show the client what they've just paid for. This is specification information. There are multiple ways in doing this. Toby's done by the US. And it basically zooms out and says the information builds the model. So hopefully that gives you a bit of a context to what I mentioned on the lead up to that. But now we're going to go a bit broader and then bring it back to the impact on facilities managers before looking at an applied case study by McBride, Charles and Ryan, by Dr. Drew Williamson on the VCCC, the reality, not just pretty pictures. So around the world, everyone's getting into it at different levels. Do I think it's going to be mandated by the Australian government right away? No, not right away. I think they're kind of sitting and watching to see what the commercial industry sector does. And there are various projects and also companies, even Nick was telling me that Lend-Lease and a few of the other big players are saying, are saying for future projects, it's got to be BIM. These are the major projects around Australia, currently requiring a BIM deliverable and mainly mandating Revit as the primary software in which to do it. They're all up around the 1 billion plus. So the Royal Adelaide, Royal Hobart, Princess Margaret. I've even had like signage companies say, hey, we want to get on this project. Can you convert our products so we can be more easily specified and involved? That's all wonderful. I've given you an insight, but I guess that's all design based. What relevance does it have to facilities management? Well, this video will give you an insight. The start is a bit on rendering, which is not quite as relevant, but the end certainly will show you how this data can be used. This software and this video was put together about a year ago. The software has now been launched. The first graphic you'll see is actually the LAX airport. They did like a crowdfunding model, this gentleman called Phil Reed, but it's a very powerful software that utilizes the 3D models created from different software to manage a facility. So enjoy. I just got to turn this one up a bit.
The Bayeux platform provides a suite of integrated apps that will transform the way teams collaborate to design, construct, and operate buildings and infrastructure. After creating successful cloud-based systems in other industries, long before the term cloud was used, the M6 team recognized an urgent need. We believed a completely new approach to data management, messaging, and collaboration would be required to support true building lifecycle management. After more than 4 years and tens of thousands of man-hours, the Bayeux platform is readying for launch. One way to get a sense of its power is to watch this brief overview of the first wave of Bayeux apps. Since virtually everything Bayeux does involves visualization, we'll start with our real-time 3D engine, Lux. Lux has cloud collaboration and support for huge datasets in its DNA. It will gracefully handle projects linking hundreds of Revit and AutoCAD files, and will soon support other design formats as well. In addition to the cross-platform real-time 3D engine, Lux makes it simple to render computationally expensive images in the cloud. Whether it's complete or still cooking, every image has a web address, so it can be viewed from any web browser or linked in an email. For tasks that require more control, Bayeux offers a different kind of link. For users with the Mac or Windows version of Bayeux installed, a single click can load a particular project revision and set up every single setting needed to recreate an image in Lux.
So these
or
next
perform
5
some other
apps
task
are the
in
ones
one
of
the
real
other Bayeux
relevance to you
apps.
guys. This one not
We
so
also
much.
wanted to be able to use these images to interact with Bayeux. So to further blur the distinction between real-time and offline graphics, Lux makes it possible to select objects in either, and the selection is maintained consistently across views. Another feature of the Lux real-time engine that we wanted to be able to use with renders is the Frame Selected Objects command. With IntelliPixel, I can select an object in a rendered image and seamlessly zoom to it in the real-time engine. With Lux, rendered images are much more than just pretty pictures. Time is Bayeux's construction sequencing app. The sequences can be created manually by applying custom rules based on object type and context, or via our bidirectional link with Microsoft Project and Oracle Primavera P6. Time provides simple drag-and-drop editing of nested sequences, task duration, and animation styles. Like all data in Bayeux, as soon as a new sequence is published, it automatically syncs across the team without requiring manual import-export steps. Logic is Bayeux's app for design coordination and validation. Logic makes it simple to create custom rules and share them with the rest of your team, and it has great tools to isolate issues hidden in dense building models. While designing Bayeux, we've been giving as much thought to the anthropology as the technology, and that's especially true of Logic. Design coordination meetings often waste an enormous amount of time trying to determine exactly what has changed since the last meeting. With Logic, you always know who changed what, when, and why. And Bayeux's integration with enterprise social networks makes it simple to capture reports with embedded links and assign issues to groups or individuals according to your project's policies and best practices. Archive is the Bayeux app that provides a spatially linked digital document library. Documents are added to the library via drag and drop or bulk import. Like all the Bayeux apps, as soon as any team member shares information, it immediately begins syncing with the rest of the project team. Drag and drop is also used to associate documents with specific pieces of equipment or with categories of objects. We think a big part of the appeal of our integrated platform approach is that the different apps can combine in unexpected ways to solve problems. Here's an example teaming Archive and Lux for use in operations and maintenance. The fine detail provided by Lux's cloud renders make it easier to navigate and understand the densely packed systems in the subcellar of this building. As I click on equipment, I can see the relevant operating manuals, warranties, parts lists and repair history, and many other document types. Pulse is the Bayeux app that integrates with sensors and building management systems. Pulse allows real-time and historical sensor data to be visualized and spatially linked to the final as-built model. With a single click, the workspace can be configured with the appropriate data layers, charts, and camera position needed to understand a particular aspect of the building's performance. In this example, clicking on a room volume highlights temperature values for that room. Clicking on a sensor data source zooms the camera to the associated model object. Pulse will also display alarms reported by BACnet sensors. For example, if this standby exhaust fan signals that a motor self-test has failed, facilities management personnel can easily find related documents in Bayeux Archive. In the office or in the field with a tablet, it will be simple to refer to startup instructions, maintenance procedures, repair history, warranty documents, and so on. Here's a preview of the latest Bayeux app. It's called Track, and it's a simple but powerful tool to track the location and status of materials and equipment during and after construction. With each scan, a message is sent to the cloud database and is then published in real time to any users logged in with appropriate permissions. After construction is complete, VoTrack is an amazing operations and maintenance tool. Simply scan a barcode on a piece of equipment, and Bayeux will display all the relevant documents stored in Bayeux Archive. When paired with our upcoming iPad app, this will be an incredibly useful way to access operating manuals, parts lists, warranties, maintenance procedures, service histories, inspection photos, and virtually any other kind of digital document. VAO provides the right information when and where you need it most.
So I'm not selling VAO, but I'm just giving you a glimpse of the future. And the exciting thing is that even my mum could walk up to a machine and zap it with a barcode and gain the instructions, the photos on how to fix it. And imagine with my iPad, I walk up to this unit here up in the ceiling, this lighting fixture, and I go, oh, 3-foot Phillips needs replacing X, Y, and Z. And the beautiful thing is accountability comes into the system because the person who installs it, the person who repairs it, has to put their digital signature. Right from construction, and I know Nick's worked on the Adelaide Oval construction, and they've done clash detection meetings, and they've said, you know, you've got this pipe or ductwork or whatever it is clashing. And then out on site, it's still clashing. And they go back, look at the legacy and say, hey, you signed off on this, it's your responsibility. So that's the exciting future.